Why is it that throughout the entire 116 years of the Hundred Years' War, when the English army conquered vast parts of France, they were powerless against a small island fortress in the middle of the sea? That place is none other than Mont-Saint-Michel, one of the most impregnable and legendary strongholds in human history. Surrounded by fierce tides, it stood not only as an unassailable fortress, but also as a sacred symbol, forever tied to the legend of the apocalyptic battle between the Archangel Michael and the sea demon. What astonishes later generations is not only its military feats, but also the marvel of its construction. How did medieval people, without modern machinery, without reinforced concrete, manage to raise such a magnificent abbey, a grand castle, upon bare rock relentlessly battered by the tides, where even a single misstep could have swept everything away? Chapter 1. When the sea recedes, the island emerges. On the Normandy coast, the water recedes as if the entire ocean is retreating, revealing a path leading to a massive rocky mass towering in the bay. Just a few hours earlier, it was surrounded by the sea. Now, Mont-Saint-Michel appears like a fortress from legend, its shoreline connected to the mainland like magic. The Normandy Bay is famous for its tidal range of up to 14 meters, one of the largest differences in the world. Just a misstep in timing, and you could be trapped by rising water in moments. It was in this place, during the 8th century, that people began to build an abbey rising like a spear piercing the clouds. The idea of constructing a massive structure on a rocky outcrop in the middle of the sea already sounds daring enough. But Mont-Saint-Michel is even more special. It is both a religious site and a defensive fortress. This position is so strategic that for hundreds of years, invaders always hesitated when seeing the sheer walls rising from the waves. Today, Mont-Saint-Michel is recognized by Unesco as a World Heritage Site, 1979, not only for its historical and religious value, but also for the engineering marvel, constructing a layered architectural complex on a tiny rocky foundation, subjected to one of Europe's harshest tides. Many engineering experts call this the most successful experiment of medieval architecture in combining stone walls, foundations, and gravity to resist both nature and humans. But Mont-Saint-Michel is not just a structure. It is an experience. Each year, over 3 million tourists come here, not only to admire its majestic beauty, but also to feel the strange intersection between nature and human hands. In the morning, you will see sunlight shining on the abbey's pointed roofs. In the afternoon, the tide begins to rise, reflecting the ancient walls on the water like a giant mirror. This place also has unspoken taboos. Local people often remind, don't try to cross the mudflats without a guide, because the tidal currents here are as fast as a galloping horse and can sweep away everything. There are stories of tourists lost in the sinking sand, a reminder that Mont-Saint-Michel is beautiful but never completely tamed. Technically, what intrigues researchers the most is how the medieval people handled the steep and narrow rocky foundation to raise a multi-layered structure that has stood for over 1,300 years. The walls are up to 3 meters thick at the island's base, with vault and buttress systems designed to distribute forces, combined with a granite foundation that bears extreme loads. Not only resisting erosion from wind and sea salt, Mont-Saint-Michel has also withstood countless battles and changes over time. So why, among countless safe places on the mainland, did people choose to build this masterpiece in such a perilous location? And could the secrets in Mont-Saint-Michel's structure explain how it has endured through centuries of upheaval? The answers will gradually reveal themselves in the following chapters, as we delve deeper into the world both real and mythical of this rocky island amid the sea. Chapter 2. Conquering the Unstable Foundation. When stepping onto Mont-Saint-Michel, few imagine that this entire massive structure actually stands on a solitary granite rock, surrounded by soft mud and one of Europe's strongest tidal currents. The surrounding ground cannot bear weight, waves constantly erode, and every major storm could destroy everything if the foundation is not strong enough. Yet for over 1,300 years, it has stood there, defying storms, wars, and even minor seismic tremors. According to modern geological surveys, The island's core is granite formed hundreds of millions of years ago, but the surface layer is constantly eroded by wind and waves. The ancients had no modern machinery, no reinforced concrete, but they understood that for the structure to survive, the foundation must attach directly to the hardest rock. Therefore, the craftsmen of the 10th to 15th centuries drilled, chiseled, and anchored each stone block into the cliff, creating a tightly linked anchoring network. A little-known secret is the system of stone steps surrounding the island's base. They are not just for climbing, but also act as a shield to absorb and disperse wave forces. When the tide rises, water hits the steps. Its energy is redirected and significantly reduced before reaching the walls. On the outside, there are sloping breakwater walls, designed to let water slide up instead of crashing directly, reducing erosion risks. UNESCO documents from 1979 state clearly, the foundation structure of Mont-Saint-Michel is a rare testament to the combination of geological knowledge, craftsmanship, and coastal defense strategy. What is astonishing is that these techniques were implemented when Europe was still immersed in the Middle Ages, when all calculations relied on generational experience and meticulous human observation. The builders also had to solve another problem: mud. The surrounding bay has a fine mud layer several meters thick, capable of swallowing a person in minutes if they misstep. This made transporting materials a nightmare. They had to wait for the exact moment the tide receded, using carts, wooden rafts, or even human shoulders, to move each stone weighing hundreds of kg from the mainland to the island, then rush to build before the water rose again. The foundation is not only to resist waves, but also to bear the enormous weight from the entire abbey, chapel, watchtowers, and even the village. The architects of that time distributed the weight ingeniously. The heaviest parts placed close to the rock core, lighter parts like the chapel and pointed towers placed high, avoiding excessive pressure on the island's base. Although modern science can explain part of it, there are still details that intrigue researchers. Some stone joints seem placed in optimally unbelievable positions if relying only on manual estimation. Some architectural historians suggest that the builders of that time may have applied a form of golden ratio or secret geometric principles to achieve maximum stability, something they did not record in any documents. And so Mont-Saint-Michel is not only a religious or defensive masterpiece, but also a timeless challenge for anyone wanting to decode how medieval people turned a tiny island into an impregnable fortress amid the ocean. Chapter 3: The Impregnable Citadel Amid Deadly Tides. When standing on the path leading into Mont-Saint-Michel, few imagined that this place was once one of Europe's most difficult fortresses to breach. In the Middle Ages, especially during the 100 Years' War, 1337 to 1453, this island was not only a religious center, but also a solid shield for France. The English army repeatedly tried to besiege it, but the sea waves, tides, and towering walls turned every attack into a disaster. The tides in Normandy Bay are a formidable weapon. When the water rises, the only road connecting the island to the mainland disappears under swirling waters, turning Mont-Saint-Michel into an isolated oasis. Armies that miscalculated movement time could be trapped, swept away, or become easy targets for archers on the walls. When the water recedes, the surrounding mudflats act as a natural minefield. One wrong step, and the intruder sinks into the deep, sticky mud, unable to escape. On this treacherous terrain, humans cleverly added layers of artificial defense. The drawbridge was designed to be raised or lowered quickly, cutting off the enemy's approach. The walls were built high in multiple layers, curved to reduce cannon impact and allow archers to shoot from various angles. On the round towers, arrow slits opened toward the sea, allowing bows to be fired or boiling pitch poured on daring climbers. One astonishing point is that medieval engineers knew how to utilize the tides as part of their military strategy. They didn't need to maintain a large force on the island, as nature did the hardest part, isolating and weakening besieging armies. Just a few dozen elite soldiers, Mont-Saint-Michel could hold out for weeks, even months. Historian Jules Quichrat recorded in 19th century chronicles that the English army was like fighting against a wall of the sea when trying to capture the island. Meanwhile, the residents and monks here continued normal life, raising livestock, farming on narrow land, and receiving supplies through secret paths when tides were favorable. The perfect combination of nature and artifice turned Mont-Saint-Michel into a steel box amid the ocean, not only blocking enemies, but also preserving its structure almost intact through centuries. It's no coincidence that even today, tourists are still amazed standing before stone walls that have endured hundreds of storm seasons, dozens of war tremors, but still stand towering, as if defying time. But this is only part of the story. Besides the walls and drawbridges, Mont-Saint-Michel hides a mysterious architectural network inside, where military, religious, and engineering secrets once kept, far beyond its era. We will decode those together in the next chapter. Chapter 4. Architectural Secrets Hidden in the Heart of Mont-Saint-Michel. Stepping through Mont-Saint-Michel's gate, one realizes immediately that this place is not simply a fortress or abbey. Beneath the ancient stone layer is an architectural labyrinth built on principles both religious and military, making any intruder lost even after breaching the walls. The lowest level, at the island's base, is a system of warehouses and stables, storing food, wine, salt, and essential tools to hold out during sieges. These rooms are built with stone vault ceilings up to a meter thick, resistant to bombardment and sea waves. The passages between warehouses are narrow enough for only one person or animal to pass, forcing enemies to advance single file, a great advantage for defenders. Higher up is the monks' living and meeting area. What's special here is the long, narrow corridors often leading to dead ends or trapdoors, allowing quick blocking or trapping. From narrow high windows, defenders could observe the entire bay and shoot arrows into any approaching alleys. But the most mysterious point lies at the top level, the abbey and church. Many believe this is the heart of Mont-Saint-Michel, both a religious center and military command post. Medieval architects cleverly hid under the church floor a network of small rooms, connected to spiral staircases leading down to lower levels. Thus, defenders could move quickly from the island's summit to the gate in minutes without detection. One of the most astonishing structures is the Grande Roue, a giant wooden wheel over 3 meters in diameter, once used to haul goods and supplies from the beach to the island's top. Just a few people walking inside the wheel, like a biological mill, could lift hundreds of kg to dozens of meters high. In wartime, this system became a safe supply line when other entrances were blocked. What amazes historians today is that the entire architectural mass was built without modern technical drawings. The walls fit perfectly, load-bearing columns distributed reasonably, and corridors wind along natural rock contours. This not only makes the structure sturdy against earthquakes and storms, but also creates countless hidden nooks, where treasures, secret documents, or even secret sea escapes could be concealed. Legend has it that, during the 100 Years' War, a group of monks used these very tunnels to slip out at night, sneak attack English camps, and return safely before dawn. No one knows if those tunnels still exist or have been sealed over centuries, but local guides often lower their voices when speaking of them, as if there are secrets not yet revealable. Mont-Saint-Michel stands firm not only thanks to its position and walls, but also to the sophisticated combination of construction art and defense strategy. Every step, every turn could become part of a plan against enemies. And perhaps that's why, through hundreds of years of historical storms, this island still stands intact, defying time and wars. In the next chapter, we will leave stone and mortar to step into mysterious stories, where Mont-Saint-Michel is not just a fortress, but also the center of strange legends that make pilgrims and soldiers shudder. Chapter 5. Abbey Reaching the Clouds. When Gothic stretches to the sky. If you stand at the base of Mont-Saint-Michel and look up on a foggy morning, you'll feel the towers dissolving into the clouds. Not just a religious structure, the Abbey here is a bold declaration of medieval Gothic architecture. We will build the place closest to God. But to achieve that on a steep rocky outcrop, the monks and builders had to solve an almost impossible engineering puzzle. The structure called La Merveille, the Marvel, is the heart of Mont-Saint-Michel. This is not just an abbey but a 3-tier complex stacked upon each other, each tier serving a separate function. The basement for food storage and wine cellars, the middle for monks' dining and guest rooms, the top for meeting halls and solemn ceremony areas. All cling to the cliff edge, directly facing wind and storms from the Atlantic. The first problem is gravity distribution. The sloping terrain and rugged rock foundation make load transfer to the base very difficult. Gothic builders used a system of flying buttresses and columns to redirect forces, channeling the structure's weight down to the firmest rock points. Each arch is not just aesthetic but a force path, an architectural principle that only a few European structures understood and applied at the time. The second problem is materials. Mont-Saint-Michel has no on-site quarries. Each granite block weighing hundreds of kg was quarried from mines in the Chazzy Islands, over 17 kilometers away. In the Middle Ages, transporting this massive amount was no small challenge. Stones were loaded onto wooden rafts, waiting for high tide to float ashore, then using carts and wooden pulleys to haul uphill. Just erecting a wooden crane on the cliff required astonishing skill and daring. What sets Mont-Saint-Michel apart from famous Gothic cathedrals like Chartres or Notre Dame in Paris is the construction conditions. If in major cities, projects had spacious grounds, here every stone had to be brought up narrow slopes and temporary wooden bridges. Unpredictable weather, tides could isolate the island for days, interrupting material transport. Yet in just a few centuries, generations of craftsmen completed a towering, sturdy structure enduring over 700 years. Scholars today say Mont-Saint-Michel is a vivid testament to the conquering spirit of Gothic architecture, taller, slimmer, but without sacrificing durability. And with its position standing right on the sea edge, the structure also carries symbolic meaning, like a bridge between earth and sky, between the human world and the divine realm. Standing in the Abbey courtyard at dusk, when reddish-orange light casts on the stone columns, one understands why ancient monks called this place the staircase to heaven. But behind that beauty is an entire journey of perilous and creative engineering. A journey we will continue to explore as we learn how Mont-Saint-Michel withstood harsh nature through many centuries thereafter. Chapter 6: Sea Demon in the Shadow of Tides. When night falls on Normandy Bay and moonlight casts on the silver water, Mont-Saint-Michel looks like a fortress rising from a dream. But for medieval people, this place was not just a sacred abbey, but also the prison of a demonic creature. Legend has it that, from primordial times, a giant sea demon specialized in dragging ships to the bottom, swallowing sailors, and sowing storms across the region. One day, Archangel Michael was sent by God to punish it. A horrific battle raged amid thunder and raging waves. Then the angel used a fiery sword to chain the sea demon to the rock veins beneath the island. From then on, every rising tide, its angry roar echoes from deep caves, resounding across the water. Fishermen through generations believed this story, as they had heard strange sounds on windy nights, a humming mixed with whistling, like the breath of a caged beast. Those brave enough to approach the cliff edge at low tide said they felt a cold gust from below the rocks. With the imagination of an era unfamiliar with machinery and dynamics, this was undeniable proof that the sea demon still lived, just waiting for the chains to rot to escape. But if viewed through modern science, that roar has another explanation. Normandy Bay is famous for one of the world's largest tidal ranges, with water receding and rising up to 14 meters in hours. The massive water volume flowing through rock crevices creates a powerful hum. When sea wind blows into the island's caves and crevices, air is compressed and released continuously, producing low or whistling sounds, depending on wind direction and humidity. This natural resonance turned Mont-Saint-Michel into a giant instrument of the ocean, but for ancients, it was the sound of the chained demon. However, medieval people's clinging to legend was not mere superstition. The sea then both sustained and destroyed them. Fast and strong tides could swallow entire groups in an instant. The mudflats around the island were like deadly traps, one wrong step sinking without escape. In that context, a story of a demon imprisoned under the island both explained natural phenomena and warned people to keep distance and respect the dangerous sea. Moreover, the legend reinforced Mont-Saint-Michel's sacred status. If Archangel Michael defeated the sea demon here, then this island is not just a human fortress, but a front line of supernatural forces. Pilgrims believed stepping onto the island was entering a place blessed, and protected by heaven. Today, tourists to Mont-Saint-Michel still hear that story, though they know science has decoded most mysteries. But it's the blend of myth and truth that makes this place special. For not every structure both stands for over a millennium and retains the soul of ancient tales. Mont-Saint-Michel is not just an architectural masterpiece, but a living museum of human imagination, where sea waves and granite still tell stories of angels, demons, and the eternal battle between light and darkness. Chapter 7. The skull-piercing touch of Archangel Michael. It is said that in 708, Aubert, Bishop of Avranches, repeatedly dreamed of a radiant golden angel appearing amid sea clouds. It was Michael, commander of heavenly armies, who commanded Aubert to build a church on the solitary rocky outcrop in Normandy Bay. At first, Aubert thought it was an ordinary dream, a mind illusion after long prayer days. But the dream returned, not once but twice, then thrice, each time stronger, more urgent. The third time, the story turned mystical. In the dream, Michael pointed directly at Aubert's head. The angel's finger, bright as a fiery sword, touched his skull, piercing skin without pain, leaving only a perfect round indentation. Upon waking, Aubert found the indentation truly existed. People believed it was the angel's mark, proof of an undeniable divine command. Today, that skull still exists. It is preserved in the Avranches Town Museum, in a glass case, and tourists from everywhere come just to see the mysterious indentation. A perfectly round circle, deep like a drill mark. Modern scientists, observing, hypothesize Aubert may have undergone trepanation, a medieval medical procedure to relieve brain pressure or cure neurological diseases. Some suspect it's a rare bone disease trace. But all these explanations, though reasonable, cannot erase the faith Normandy people have nurtured for over 1,300 years. For them, regardless of trepanation or pathology, it was the angel's call. And that faith became the flame igniting the will to build Mont-Saint-Michel. In an era where nature was still an enigma, where sea and sky carried unpredictable threats, people turned to mythology as a compass to interpret the world. Aubert's story is not just a personal miracle, but the drumbeat starting the grand structure on the rocky outcrop amid the sea, where each stone holds devotion. The image of Michael, sword-holding angel on the tower top, became the island's eternal symbol. Anyone stepping the path into Mont-Saint-Michel sees his statue in gilded bronze, shining under sun, reminding of the fateful touch of old. Perhaps thanks to this story, Mont-Saint-Michel is not just an architectural wonder, but a vivid spiritual tale, where real and illusory blend indistinguishably. Today, tourists leave Avranches Museum with two contrasting feelings, half drawn into legend's power, half urged by unanswered scientific questions. And perhaps at that intersection, between faith and doubt, Mont-Saint-Michel continues to live, not only in stone and mortar, but in humanity's imagination. Chapter 8. Living Wonder, Defying Time. Mont-Saint-Michel is not just a rocky mass crowned with carved stone on Normandy's strait, but a living witness to over a millennium of European history's ups and downs. From when Bishop Aubert started the Abbey in the 8th century, the island has undergone countless purpose changes: a pilgrimage holy site, an impregnable fortress in the 100 Years' War, a cold prison during the French Revolution, then returning to glory when Unesco recognized it as a World Heritage Site in 1979. Each era left its mark, but all blend into layered memories, making Mont-Saint-Michel both a relic and a living entity continuing to breathe in the 21st century. Mont-Saint-Michel's resilience cannot be separated from engineering feats. On granite eroded by sea waves and surrounded by mudflats, the structure stands through centuries of storms, minor earthquakes, and war bombardments. The stone steps and breakwater walls help disperse water forces, while the foundation is anchored directly to the mother rock, a solution even modern engineers admire. When wars or disasters sweep through, Mont-Saint-Michel seems to bow for wind to pass, then rise towering, defying time. But Mont-Saint-Michel lives not only thanks to stone and lime. It lives thanks to its ability to inspire. The Gothic arches of La Merveille, the three-tier abbey reaching blue sky, urged many medieval architects to seek new limits for their techniques. Many churches and abbeys across Europe borrowed ideas of gravity distribution and combining load-bearing walls with flying buttresses from here. Even castles in England and Germany, designing watchtowers or drawbridges, often referenced Mont-Saint-Michel's defense structure as a coastal stronghold symbol. In art and literature, Mont-Saint-Michel becomes an ideal backdrop. From Renaissance wood engravings, 19th-century romantic landscapes, to epic films or fantasy novels, the island is always described as a gate connecting real and mythical worlds. Many tourists come just because they've seen its silhouette in a book page or film frame, then are overwhelmed by its real presence. Today, millions from worldwide cross the damned path to step on the island, accepting tide blockages if arriving wrong time, just to walk ancient stone steps, hear Abbey bells echoing through sea wind. People come wanting to touch the unchanging amid time's flow, a rare feeling in a constantly changing world. Mont-Saint-Michel still keeps taboos silently existing from the Middle Ages. Many guides say that on strong wind nights, locals avoid naming Sea Demon, believing he's still chained under the island. Monks avoid certain corridors at high tide, not just for danger, but to respect ancient rituals passed down. Perhaps the blend of material and spirit, myth and technique, made Mont-Saint-Michel a timeless symbol. It is a place where each stone carries geological weight and human faith's power, a 19th-century scholar once wrote. Mont-Saint-Michel is not built only by stone and lime, but by the desire to reach the impossible, which made angels touch human foreheads. And perhaps that desire is why the island still stands here, defying both sea and time. So we have just journeyed together through nearly a millennium of Mont-Saint-Michel, where stone, wind, waves, and faith blend, creating a wonder standing firm against both time and humans. Whether you see it as an impregnable fortress, a cloud-touching abbey, or simply a picturesque island, Mont-Saint-Michel has a way to move your heart. If you find today's story bringing something new, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That gives me more motivation to continue bringing you other journeys, to places seemingly impossible yet existing in this world. Thank you for spending time accompanying with Logic Relic. See you again.